And then periodically, I just kind of want to talk to the class, let them know I'm there. Maybe we'd have something to talk over. This spring, I did a survey of my students, and I kind of wanted to share the results with them. So this one, again, just kind of I had a green screen, so that's why I'm just silhouetted there. I had a green screen behind me and just talking to the camera like I am now, which is weird. You're trying to make eye contact, and so you're looking at a little dot. That's how you're making eye contact. You get used to it. But those, again, will be 5 to 10 minutes posted in the D2L news feed, maybe linked in an email. And that's just period. That'd be only a few times a semester. All right, last one. The last type is content itself. And these kind of varied by the course. So this last spring semester, I did like lecture videos. This was in my calculus class. And these, I kind of went away from Chastity's guidelines. And I don't know if it was good or bad. But I made like 20-minute lecture videos. And in fact, for one section, I might even have 2 or 3 of them. This is kind of heavy stuff in Calculus 3. And I think for those students, it was okay, because my average view time out of a 20-minute video might be 13 minutes, which means a lot of students were watching the whole video. So I would not do that for like a stats class or like a 100 level class, but that's like our engineering students, our top students that really knew the value of it. So for them, I was willing to kind of bend that shorter video guidelines. So let's click and we'll go through the next 3 slides, Tyler. We can kind of show what it looks like. So the weekly preview, you can see here, I would use the embed ability with YouTube videos where you can embed it within a D2L news post. So they're not clicking a link, they're just clicking play. And if they want to, they can pop out and watch it in YouTube, but they can just click play. Go to the next one. So the same thing for the class communication where there's an update. And then the last one, Tyler, is the course content. And if you look over on the right here, you can see in my content browser, they're actual content items. So in the content within D2L, you can add a video and you just link to the video and this links to the YouTube video. And then the benefit of that, I never really used it, but you could see if students clicked on it within D2L. It doesn't tell you if they watched it, and they could have watched it directly through YouTube, and so it wouldn't show that they watched it. So it's not perfect, but you could, if you wanted to, use that as a monitoring of how many students at least opened the link for that content. So I think, Chastity, you were going to do something next to talk about yours.
Yep. And so what I did for mine is each week I created a web page that had all the content that they needed. And there you can see I also embedded the lecture video. So all they had to do was click play. I did use some videos that I found on YouTube because it is time consuming and we're going to talk about that later. So I did have a blend of videos that I created and then videos that I found online that I use for students. And then above the video that says claim lecture video, you'll notice that there's a guided notes. And so one thing I do for the lecture videos when possible is I just create notes for my students to be able to follow along with the videos as well.
Why don't you keep going, Chastity, because I think you had some good slides here, and I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, so some things that I do to make my videos engaging is that I try to make sure that the information is very concise and to the point. When I am doing the slides, I don't put all of the content on the slide at one time. So I use animation and, bullet by bullet or point by point, it will show as I'm talking about the information so I don't overwhelm my students with content. And then I try to use visually pleasing images as well so that it's catching to the eye. And then, as I mentioned, with the guided notes that I create for my students, and it's very basic, I have an example that I'll show you. That is also helpful for when I give students a quiz or I say, hey, I want you to practice something that was reviewed in the video. They can refer back to their actual guided notes that they took. And ways that I get my students to watch the videos is that I actually try to embed the videos into Nearpod. And there's actually a video that I explained how I use that program that Tyler's office will make available. And so what students will do, it's almost like an interactive class, but they're just doing it on their computer. So it'll open and there'll be a question. Let's say I'm teaching them about thesis statements and I'll open with a question and I'll say, hey, well, how do you define thesis statements? I won't actually say, hey, but it'll be a question. And they'll type in their answer. And then they'll have a video that walks them through, this is a thesis statement. And then after that lecture video, Nearpod allows you to give quizzes, so I can have my students, ask them questions to see what they retained. And then I can even have them write examples of thesis statements for the essays that they are working on. And then that information that they do in that Nearpod presentation, I get all of that data back to see, are my students understanding the information? Do I need to make additional videos? So that's one way that I make the videos engaging.
All right, so before we go to the next slide, let me talk a little bit about mine here. So
Dan, can I cut you off real quick for a question that's come up?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one question I think Manuel posed. Dan, how often do you post a video in the news section in D2L? Do you also post the same video in the content area?
So the content videos, can we go back 2 slides? No, I don't think you'll see it. So the content videos I only do as, 2 more slides. So I do them as content items, and then you see, if you look on the bottom here of this page, I just link to them. So I'll do a weekly embedded, hey, welcome to the week, here's what we're gonna do. And that's a short video that doesn't have all the content. It's just kind of, hey, here's what this week's gonna be about. And then in that same news post, I'll have a link to all of those section 7.1 and section 7, those are videos. So I'll have a link to the videos. So embedding, I'll embed like once a week with an announcement, some bigger thing. And then I don't embed the content because there's too many of those and it'll like flood the news feed and it'll get lost. So those I leave as content items and I'll link to them. I'll also have them in a like a module guide as well. Does that answer your question, Manny? So yeah, we'll go back to make them engaging. So there's a couple things that I use here. One is, you saw on some of the screen captures there, I like to do me on the screen. And it's not because I'm pretty, that's part of it. That's not the whole thing though. So it's really because I want students to see a face and I want to be able to look at the camera and like really make a point. And as part of my editing sometimes, in fact, I don't have it always down in the corner. Sometimes I'll edit it and I'll have it big and because I want to make a point and talk to the camera so they can actually like see a real person there. And then for the engaging thing, this is something I did not do initially, but speaking about editing, I've done more and more of that as I've gotten into this. Some of it's just like, you get down a rabbit hole and like, ooh, I wonder if I can add this feature or do this. So it like makes them more stimulating, more like a YouTube video that they might watch with screen cuts and like different things. That's not like a first step you should try, and I don't recommend it. But as you start doing more of them, you might see something like, ooh, I wonder if I can learn how to do that. And that's not going to be with like a free browser plugin that you click record. So that's just something that I've picked up over the years, is adding more of the editing into it. In terms of part B and C, these are kind of tied in together. So this is for my statistics class. I have a video after each, or a quiz after each video. So there's a video over a section, like a normal face-to-face that might be a day. So there's a short video, 5 to 10 minutes, and then there's a D2L quiz that's just like a concept check from that video. They should make a few notes, write down a few keywords. It's not like do a bunch of statistics, but it's just like some quick checks that should be obvious from the video. So I actually quiz them on the videos. That's how I kind of make them watch the videos. Helps my YouTube view count too. I think Chasity, you had something you were going to add about your interactive.
Yes. So again, I mentioned like pacing the content, and I try when I make a video to focus on one particular concept in the video. So I'm not hitting too many points because I want to make it very simple. And that's because I teach primarily 098, 101, 102 classes. And so I'm thinking about my audience as I'm deciding what goes into that video. And there's an example of the guided notes. As you can see, it's very, very basic. It doesn't have a lot of information. It's just a way to help them keep track of what it is I'm covering in the video. And again, I do that because I teach entry-level students many of whom come into my classroom not knowing how to take notes. And then they actually use the notes. So for example, if you notice in this example, templates for introducing what they say, they will use that in their rough draft. And so I'll say, hey, don't forget, to look at your guided notes for that information. So it's something that they'll use later. And then the Nearpod is logo there, so you can see what that program looks like if you're interested.
Let's see here. Let me just talk about one thing here, and I know Chastity has a few points to make. For accessibility, one thing I realized spring semester is I was writing for my calculus notes. I do guided notes there as well, and I was kind of writing where you could almost see, like, think about half of an 8.5 by 11 page, and I was writing. I'll talk about my text setup later. I'm writing as I'm recording it, and so the print size looked legible to me on my monitor. I'm like, okay, this is fine. And one of my students mentions in one of the live classes, like, oh yeah, man, it's just really hard to watch on my phone. And I realized, whoa, okay, I need to be way more cognizant of font size and how zoomed in I am. You'll notice here, like, this font size might seem pretty big, but if you were watching this on your phone, this would be like a nice, readable, legible font size, because we don't know what people are logging in on you. You don't know what students are using. So I try to make things now really big. I'm zoomed in and try to make it very neat and legible. Tyler, what's going on? All right. I'll pass it over to Chastity now.
So also when I'm selecting photos, I am intentional about diversity. So ethnic diversity, also in terms of ability, showing students, for example, in a wheelchair. And sometimes you can find these photos very easily just using Google. But I also use, I think it's called Pexels, P-E-X-E-L. And they have free stock photos that you can use. And I do that to I want my students to see themselves reflected in the content that I use in the classroom.
Oh, and then captioning. I know, Chastity, you had some experience with Meets and YouTube. Do you want to talk about that right now?
Yes. So when I started doing the lecture videos, I would write out the scripts, and I do that for some of the content. And so that way, if a student needs accommodations, I can even give them the script, or I've coordinated with the D2L office about captioning. I'm not sure we have an update for how they're going to be doing that in the fall. But if you're doing lecture videos, they do have to be accessible to all students. And so captioning or transcripts are required. And so just think about that as you are making your videos. And so you also have to think about that too in terms of planning, so that you don't post a video the same day if you don't have a transcript or caption available for your students.
Hey, Tyler, I'm going to share, if that's okay.
I'll be able to.
Let me see here. So I just checked this earlier about captioning, and I think I have too many windows open. Okay. This is one of my YouTube videos, just a random Zoom class that I opened, and you don't need to hear the audio. But if you hit close, like this is just in YouTube, and there's closed captions, and it'll pop up. They're just auto-generated. So this is good and bad. It's good because they're auto-generated, and they're better than not having any. But depending on the peculiarities of your material, this is math. Sometimes the vocabulary isn't great. There's no punctuation. So it's like a very minimum there, but just so you know, when you upload to YouTube, there is captioning there that happens automatically. So it's better than no captioning whatsoever. Right. You can do the presentation again, Todd. So I think next, as Tyler gets it back up, there's a question here about D2L having upload size maximum on videos. So we'll talk about, I don't think we talked about, we're going to talk a little bit about sharing the videos, so we can mention that now. When we're uploading videos to YouTube, we actually are, when we're linking them in D2L, there's no file in D2L. It's just a link. There's no file whatsoever. It's just a link. YouTube is hosting the file, and there's good reasons for that, and we'll talk about that later. But we're not actually uploading a file. When I first taught online, I used the D2L, and I uploaded like QuickTime movie files, and that was a terrible idea. It did not work well. So we're not actually uploading movies to D2L. We're just linking them from YouTube, and we'll talk about that process later. Yes, and Tammy is correct. You can edit those captions. In fact, if I don't know if we have someone on staff, but you can actually give someone else editing privileges. That's a lot of work for a faculty member to do in the moment. So I don't know how that all works, but that is possible. I did check.
I mentioned with that, if you have students who are requesting accommodations because of being deaf or hard of hearing, you can work with the accommodations office to have a service do the captioning for you. So if students are particularly requesting accommodations for captions on videos, that is something that the Trina Probst's office and disability services will work with faculty on to have a service caption those for you.
All right, let's go to the next slide, and Chastity can answer some of these technology questions that I know people have been asking.
All right, so I am an Apple user, and one thing I like about Apple is that it has a lot of the necessary software programs already built in. And so I use my MacBook Pro to record lecture videos. It has a built-in web camera, and I use QuickTime Player, which comes with a MacBook. And they have their own version of PowerPoint or Google Slides, and that is Keynote. I started using Google Slides, but I've since switched over to Keynote because I think it's more visually appealing. I record audio using the Blue microphone because the sound is better. The quality of the sound is better. I also use my iPad, and you can see there an Apple Pencil, and on my iPad there's an app called Good Notes. And so I use that for when I'm annotating, if I'm showing students how to outline, anytime I'm doing any type of handwritten information, I use my iPad, my Apple Pencil, and Good Notes, the app on my iPad. I recently got a light to put on my laptop so that when I am recording and my face is showing, I can have light so that the students can see my face better. Also, when I'm recording, I have to be mindful about the background noise, and I'm sure many of you all had that situation. But this summer, there was a road construction that was done primarily in the morning, and so I could not record video. So you want to be mindful of background noise, light, things of that nature when you are doing your recording.
All right, let's go to the next slide. So mine here, my setup is it's really grown over the years. So I'm a PC user, and as part of the purchasing agreement in the spring, I purchased an HP Spectre, which is a convertible laptop. Like, you can fold it over backwards, and then it's a tablet, and you can write on it. It's a touch screen. I use a pen like Chastity had pictured there previously. So this is what I'm using in my math classes to write all the mathematical notation, and I'm using screen capture software called Camtasia, and I'm capturing that at the same time. One thing I started doing, because remember I mentioned earlier, is I want these periodic, like I'm talking to the camera, it's high definition, I want it to be look clear on their screens, and Camtasia has a maximum resolution. So I actually will have two programs running side by side when I'm recording. Camtasia will capture the screen and the mic, and then I actually have the camera software operating my USB camera, which is actually like a separate USB camera on top of kind of right above the screen, so I can look at the screen. So that, and then I merge them when I'm editing within Camtasia, and that's where I edit out the green screen in the background, kind of resize myself over it. Periodically, I accidentally write like behind my head, and I have to like remove myself so they can see what I'm writing, and all. So that's like the post editing. Sometimes the audio isn't great, and you can edit out white noise within Camtasia, do some trimming, cropping. This one thing that's nice about it is I make mistakes often, and I just stop, wait, give like a period of silence, so I know that's where the error is, go back, like erase my work, silence, and then start again like as if nothing happened. And then I just edit that out, and to the students it's like a blip, and they don't even notice it really while they're doing. I do my writing in OneNote, Microsoft OneNote. And I was gonna grab this here, sorry, these are gonna pull out of my ear. If I'm not recording during the day, and I can risk some ambient noise. I have a separate USB microphone that I use. I think Chasity had one of those as well. And it picks up too well though. And so I can't use it like during the day. I can only use that after the kids are in bed or if they're gone doing something else. And then lighting is important as well. Chasity mentioned this. So I have, this will probably screw up my camera, but I actually have a light right here pointing on my face. It's just a lamp, and I have a piece of paper because otherwise it's too bright. That's really high quality camera damper there. Just a piece of 8.5 by 11 white printer paper. And when I'm doing the green screen, I found that Camtasia didn't like, oh, this is gonna fall off, sorry. Camtasia didn't like the green without it being lit. So I actually had two separate lights like on each side of me shining back on the green screen to make it really bright. And this, again, this is not a big deal. You don't have to do any of that if you're just starting making videos, but if you wanna do that look where you're kind of silhouetted out, then you have to have a green screen and you have to have it lit really well. Yeah, I think that's it for my setup. Let's go to the next slide, Tyler. So,
well, one quick tech question for Chasity before we move on.
Oh, yeah, I see that, yes.
Pull up here. So Chasity, Sarah Baker asked, what type of iPad do you have that is good for the Apple Pencil and good notes?
I can show you here. It's an iPad Air, and I purchased it, I think, like earlier this year. So you do have to have a newer iPad to use the Apple Pencil, the newer one. And I went with this size is in the middle because I wanted to be able to write on it. There are iPads that are smaller and larger. I recommend, if you are hoping to get one, that if you feel comfortable, go in the store and test it out and see how it feels like in your hand, because that impacted which one I selected.
Yeah, and there's some good tips in the chat here too. Chris mentioned something about using Microsoft Whiteboard, and there's a built-in screen capture within Microsoft. It's like, the reality is, like, we're just talking about the systems we use, and we're going to talk on the next page about some links to other options. There's a lot of good options. Sometimes you have to just dive in and pick one and see how you like it, and then don't stress about picking the perfect setup initially. Chasity, Manny had a question for you as well. I don't know if you have the chat up. What do you use to edit your videos on your app?
I actually don't edit them. We'll end up recording it, but right now I don't edit them. I have been looking at YouTube tutorials on how to do that, and I probably would just use iMovie, honestly, because I've used that before.
Yeah, and that's a really good software for editing. You'll be good with that. Manny, just be patient. In a couple slides later, we'll talk about how we share it. All right, let's go to the next slide about recording. So we're going to share this presentation with you as a PDF, and this will be a live link, this video creation resources. And this just has a list of options about hardware that you might need to purchase, software. If you want to have a camera, what can you use for the camera? What can you use to edit it? What are some different combinations of equipment you could use? Just to show that there's really a wide range of those. And if you want to know about your specific situation, the best thing is to, I mean, I know they're swamped right now, and Tammy's online right now, but talk to distance learning, and they'll be able to give you some guidelines. Well, here's what you have. Well, given what you have, this could work, or you could purchase one more thing and then this could work. So we're going to share that link with you. Next one, Chasity, you want to talk about this one?
Yes. So there is some of equipment that is available that you don't necessarily have to have to buy. So there's an equipment loan, a request form that was sent out. I believe Peggy's office sent it out. And so, like, if you need a webcam, if you need a document camera, you don't necessarily have to go out and buy these things. So that link will be available, and you can check that out to see what is available. And that'll be a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. All right. So now Manny asked in the chat about how we're uploading, and I think Chasity both and I have similar things. We love YouTube. It's really easy to upload files there, and then The nice thing about YouTube is it's super easy to share. You can share a link. You can put your link as a content item in D2L. You can embed these posts. You can put them in emails. And then if a student doesn't have a great connection, YouTube will automatically adjust the quality of the video it's sending and kind of downsize it. It'll be less clear for the student, but they'll downsize it so it doesn't use as much data. And it kind of knows, oh, you shouldn't use the high definition because you're on this kind of connection. So it's a great platform to make for ease of sharing. So again, we saw mine earlier. I have content items, link them, D2L news post, or maybe I embed them. And this is another file here. I'm pointing my mouse over it, which you can't see because it's Tyler's screen. But that detailed instructions link there is another. It has steps about how to sign into YouTube because you all have YouTube accounts. It's your ECC student.elgin.edu. You can use that. You can create another one if you like. And so you have those accounts. In that is instructions about how to log in, how to upload your video files, how to get the link if you want to paste the link, and how to share. And I think, Chastity, you had another good point you wanted to make about YouTube.
Yeah, I try to create playlists for the videos that I create. So, and they're typically either around an assignment or a skill. So for example, my students write a comparative analysis. So any videos that will be helpful to those students writing that comparative analysis, I'll put that on a playlist. And so if students have trouble accessing the videos on D2L or they just need extra support, I can just send them that link to the playlist and they can pick what they would like. I also like the playlist because if I have a student who is struggling in a particular area and needs more support, if I have a video that I've already created that I can share with the student, that's where the YouTube links or the playlists really come in handy.
All right, next slide. We wanted to give you a little bit of feedback from students. And so this spring semester, it was really, I had like this epiphany because we were changing so much. I really wanted to hear from my students. So I did 3 surveys. I did a survey before we went online, like, do you have access to the resources? I think you might remember Kim Tarver sharing that. So I kind of used versions of hers. After a couple of weeks, I did another survey, like, hey, how are things going? Blah, blah, blah. And then I did a survey at the end of the semester. What was most useful? You know, what should have been done differently? And it was like really good feedback from my students, like not like your ECC student evaluations, sorry. Like actual, they were super thoughtful because they were specific to the course and timely. And I just realized, like, why am I not doing this all the time? Like very specific ones. Some of you are like, yeah, you should already do that. So anyway, these are some comments from spring. And I had multiple students, and I'll be honest, especially the calculus students, they liked the videos because they could pause and rewatch, which you can't do in real time. Like, what's that Click, the movie with Will Smith? Isn't that the one where you can click and like rewind, or Adam Sandler? I don't remember, one of those. And so they liked the online videos because they could pause them. And it was because I was talking to the camera and trying to be interactive and showing graphics, showing the software that we were using, they thought that was like the regular class. Tyler, there's one more on the next page. This too, just they like the videos. You can watch it whenever you want. You know, we had class time that we would meet twice a week, and you can watch it whenever you want, as long as it's before class and you're prepared for class. So the students, you know, many of them commented that they liked watching those content videos. Jesse, did you want to add anything here?
No, I mean, I had similar, feedback. Yeah.
All right. So let's go to the next slide, Tyler. Go ahead, Chastity.
All right, so now we've given you lots of information. I want to talk about how you can implement what we've talked about today. The first thing I think that is helpful is for you to identify your short-term and long-term goals in terms of lecture videos. Be honest about your technical skill, ability, and time. There is a feature, for example, on PowerPoint where you can narrate slides. And so if that's where you are, that's where you are. And there's nothing wrong with starting there and then building up to where you're shooting actual videos. And you also want to think about time. You know, how much time is this going to take? So what's realistic for where you are. Find partners and support, so working with the distance learning office, working with IT, but also working with people in your department. If there is a type of, a topic that everybody has to cover. So for example, topic synthesis in the English department. Maybe you partner with a couple of your colleagues and say, hey, you make a video on this, I'll make a video on that, and we'll both share them in our classes. So that's a way that you can make this doable for you. And consider what's reasonable, realistic, and doable. Those are big things that I think about when I'm making the lecture videos. And one reason why I had some videos that I created and some videos that I just linked to YouTube, because it wasn't feasible during the semester and in the middle of a pandemic to be making, 15, 20 lecture videos. And so I had to make that adjustment. I also recommend creating a pacing schedule that you give yourself time to create the slides, if you're going to use slides, or write out an outline for if you're doing like your face on the camera, editing the videos, posting the videos. You need to review the video. Any video that you make, at least when you begin, you want to just click play throughout multiple parts of your video to make sure that the audio is working, make sure things are working as you desire, and then giving yourself time to upload the video. So depending on the length of your video, it can take a while for it to upload to YouTube. So you just want to think about that. And then the last thing is thinking about how you can use these videos post online instruction. So it's always awesome if you can make something one time and then use it multiple times. So when I am deciding what videos to make, I try to make things that I'm always going to teach my students about thesis statements. I'm always going to talk about topic sentences or whatever that topic is, so those are the videos I want to make sure that I make, so that when we are back to face-to-face instruction, I can go back to things that I've already done and I'm not doing double and triple work.
I think Chasity made a really good point there too about like, what are we doing for now versus what are we doing in the future? Because there's really two different goals there. Some of you are really interested in this and thinking about how to learn videos because this is something you really want to do going forward. You think maybe I can do some flip classes. I can have students watch this little video. Maybe you've been dabbling a little bit and you want to up your game and it's just something you really enjoy. That's kind of me. Like, I like making videos. In fact, I got a sabbatical to make videos coming up in the spring. Like, I'm not going to see people for a year and a half. And so like there's different purposes there. If your goal is just like, I need to know how to make some stuff to communicate with my students for fall 2020, like it's totally okay to set expectations low and to say like, Tammy just posted, you can record, this is what Chasity was saying in PowerPoint, you can record the audio and have PowerPoint will record this and you save it and you just upload it to YouTube. And then you're not doing anything external. Or like I was going to maybe share if we have time, there are some Google Chrome plugins that you can have that just do screen capture and a webcam. And it's simple. It has a little box on the corner of the webcam. You just record. It's a limit of 5 minutes. When you're done, you upload to YouTube. And it gets you through the fall semester. If that's your goal, like that's okay. It's totally okay if that's your goal. So really, thinking about what your personal goals are, I think that was a really good point that Chasity made there. All right, I think that we could do more.
One question that came up here in the chat, Dan, maybe you can speak to. So Manuel asked, I really like the suggestion of working with others in my department. What do you think is the best way to collaborate the editing process with others? For either Dan or Chasity?
Yeah, I don't have any experience with that. My first thought is that I think like one person would need to do the editing itself, but it would be really helpful for people to discuss the video and what you want in the video and what you want when. Do you want text to come up over the top? Like depending on what kind of editing you're doing. I don't really think of, oh, I'm going to crop it because I have some extra stuff at the end, or I need to cut out some stuff. That's not really editing. That's just kind of logistics of it. But if you want to add special effects, if you want to incorporate another video that you're going to put in the middle, talking with that over with someone else, just via email or via a quick chat, and then one person needs to do the editing. So Dawn asked here that she's working on this all by herself. If she wants to start recording over PowerPoints, are there resources? So maybe, I don't know if Tammy can kind of put that as a to-do item. Tammy did say that you can probably just Google this about recording in PowerPoint. and look for a YouTube video. My guess is it's a really low bar, and I don't think it will be super challenging. And so that would be my Have you done those, Chasity, where you record just using PowerPoint?
No, I haven't. I don't have Microsoft products on my laptop, so I haven't used that. But I know that it exists.
Yeah. And Peggy made a good point here. This is what I was going to recommend. Tyler, can you open up the link to the, where did it go? The video creation resources page? Nope. That one. Yep. So Peggy mentioned using Zoom. And so that's actually one of our easy options. You download Zoom, you use our institutional license. What you basically would do is you'd be Tyler right now. You'd host your own private meeting, share your screen, and it'll put your picture up on the top right, top right. And then you can have it record automatically. And then you run a meeting in Zoom. And then when you're done, you can save that file to your computer, or you can save it to the cloud, but then you got to download it to your computer to upload to YouTube anyway. So I'd probably just check the setting to download it to your computer. And that's a really low bar, as Peggy mentioned. Super easy. You're doing a Zoom recording on Screencastify, Screencast-O-Matic. These are another one. They're just free, and it's really easy to do. Yes, Elizabeth is correct as well. Google Meet. So there's a lot of really easy things that if you want to share your screen and a picture of yourself, and you just want to do the basics for now, there's a lot of easy ways to get started there.
And Dawn, if there isn't information right now in this resource guide about PowerPoint, we'll include something in sort of how to record audio to PowerPoint here whenever we share this.
Mm-hmm. Chris was mentioning about the quality of his handwriting when using whiteboard. You have a PC, is that correct? Yeah, you mentioned that earlier. So I would just recommend OneNote. It's super high quality. I could share some of the stuff that I've done. Oh, do you not have a pen? Because so maybe that's just with practice. I've gotten better at it. Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying now. The pen just it's a weird writing. You kind of have to adjust how to do that. Yeah. I don't have a good answer for that.
The Apple Pencil has a grip, and that helps. Someone asked about the cost of GoodNotes. That is also included in the video creation resources. But I want to say it's like $6.99 or $7.99. It's under $10. But there's also information about free whiteboard apps or programs in the resources.
And I believe Zoom you can share, and one of the things you can share is you can share a whiteboard. Mm-hmm. But you have to have a screen that lets you write on it. So you have your iPad, or you have my convertible laptop. You have to have something you can write on. There's a lot of options. So Ginger is asking about your institutional account. I don't think I can show you how to log in. It's basically when you go to log in, choose the SSO, secure sign-on. And then when you type in, it asks for your blank.zoom.us, you use elgin-edu. So elgin-edu.zoom.us, that's the domain you'll use. And then it'll pop you to the portal. It'll look like the portal login, and you just log in. So you go, if you're signed into Zoom, just sign out of Zoom, and then go to sign in again and use the SSO option. And that's how you log in with the institutional license. And the benefit of that is there's a lot of benefits to it, but for our purposes, then you can record to the cloud or record to your desktop and do all that already.
Okay, so we got time for more questions. I'm going to probably stop share now. We just want to kind of take questions as a big group here.
Sure.
Okay, so feel free, we got a little bit of time. If you have particular questions that have come up, I recognize a lot of different resources, strategies, and approaches that Chasity and Dan shared. Thank you very, very much both to Chasity and Dan for that. Again, the purpose here is to share ideas, share resources, get kind of the wheels turning a little bit for more exploration. So if people have questions, feel free to type in questions in the chat. I'll keep monitoring things. If you want to ask a question, you know how to use the raise hand feature in Zoom, feel free to do that. Or if you're able to just physically raise your hand, I'll be looking to kind of call on folks to unmute and go from there.
Peggy asked about PowerPoint slides being converted to Google Slides. You basically just upload it to your drive, and then I think it'll just prompt you whether you want it to convert it. The only thing is if you have special movements and things, it doesn't always do those correctly. Because Slides doesn't have, like, I'm kind of like Chasity. She loves the Keynote because of a little more professional, and I like PowerPoint as well. There's just more you can do with it. But if all you have is just slides with text and pictures, then it should copy it over just fine. It might mess with the resolution, etc. So it's a good question. No, does not have captioning. PowerPoint does not have captioning. But if you make a video and upload it to YouTube, YouTube will add the captioning. So that's the key.
Yeah, question on presentation links. Yeah, so the recording, the resources, presentation links will also be shared with everybody following today. Probably I would say by end of the week, I'll have that out to everybody.
Yeah, so it'll be a PDF, and all the links that were in the slides will be live links in the PDF document. Tammy, I don't know if you're comfortable popping in here because you have so many great resources and you've been doing this a lot longer than us. Are there any major points that you think we're missing? And then Manny, that's a good question too.
Well, thank you, because I was just going to try and type some more in the chat.
Just let you take over for a little while.
And of course, I'm working on an iPad and trying to type in URLs that are on my computer going, yikes, I can't do all this. I do have several resources that I can share with you, Tyler, for when you send things out. One comment I did want to make when somebody asked about captioning in PowerPoint. I know a lot of people are real comfortable working in PowerPoint already. I know Chasity mentioned earlier creating a transcript in advance, which I absolutely love that option. It helps you stay more focused when you're doing your recording. It saves you from thinking after you've been saying a couple sentences and then trying to figure out where you were and what your point was. It keeps you really focused. It also keeps the presentation a little bit shorter, but then you can take that transcript and you can either share it as a separate file, or you can also put it in the notes option of each slide. And then that becomes accessible for people as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Gosh, I think in the beginning I was trying to do 2 meetings at the same time, so I may have missed some of the things you said in the beginning. But another thing important if you're doing actual video and talking to the camera is looking at the camera instead of looking at your material. You know, if you look at your camera as if, try and visualize that's your class. Those are your people you're talking to. And leave pauses if you're asking questions, leave that purposeful pause for the student to consider what you said.
That's a good point. I'll have an exercise in a video that I want my students to try. And so I'll tell them, pause the video here for a second. And I'll give it a few seconds, and then I'll say, no, really, as you pause the video, I want you to try this example on your own and put that break in there. That's a good point. Manny, I saw your question about external. Chris says he does everything in the cloud, and then he does a hard drive backup. For me, because I'm editing, I want to edit locally. So what I'll do is I'll put all the videos that I've recorded on my hard drive while I'm working on it and edit it and then export it to YouTube. And then I'll take all of them and move them to an external hard drive for usually 2. So I have it saved externally for future reference, but while I'm editing on it, I want it to be fast. And so I'll leave it on my internal hard drive while I'm editing it. Chasity, I don't know, do you have an external drive for your files, or what do you do?
I have one, but I haven't been using it to back up. I just save them on my computer.
I kind of I did that for a while until I realized how much space I was taking up. Speaking of, I remember I once got an email from IT at ECC, and they had this graphic. I wish I could find the picture on short notice. And each individual was a rectangle about how much server space they were taking up. So it's like this big rectangle, right? And there's this huge rectangle that's taking up like 15% of the server space. Yeah, that was me. Videos are really big. So I was saving it in my documents, and I was getting nasty emails. No, they were fine. They're cool about it. But I was taking up a ton of server space because I had it on my documents, and then it was automatically being synchronized to the network. And so they said, can you put some of these on an external hard drive? So that's what kind of got me started. I saw Dawn's question here too. I don't know, I can't really speak to this because I don't know what the requirements are. She's saying that, you know, there's a deadline for when your fall classes are due. And I don't know how much of it they are going to need to see. Like when I developed my online class, I had months. I was normal development procedure and I turned in everything. But maybe like it seems reasonable right now to have a module guide and, you know, here's the videos I'm going to make. And you know, you're doing 6 classes, like you're just one person. I don't know. That seems reasonable, but you have to ask your dean if that would be acceptable. And your D2L, your distance learning person. Elizabeth's asking, if you record on Zoom, can you look at other items while screen sharing with pause? Look at the Zoom tutorials. I'm not sure what you're asking there, but I mean, you can look at other items. So Zoom, when you choose to share your screen, you choose which screen to share. So you can share your whole monitor, or you can share a browser tab, or like I would usually share a whole monitor because there's some math software that I use to show like 3D visuals. And I would just have that on the same monitor, and then I would just switch which was on top. And so then I could show that, and and then I would have on a different monitor like references that I was looking at and other stuff that they wouldn't see in the video. Is anyone using virtual classroom in D2L? I have not. I know is Dave Lawrence still here? Because he has used that. He's still here. He's unmuting himself. Go ahead, Dave. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I use the virtual classroom, and I like it better than any of the other platforms. It links directly into, it is part of D2L. You don't have to populate it. It's just very transparent to use it. Mm-hmm. And then we've got the upgraded version now, so that when you save things on it, they'll be there for the whole semester, not just 2 weeks. There's a couple other neat things to it that I'm still learning about.
Cool. Thanks, Dave.
We have several people using virtual classroom. I don't know if we have any people, speech people in here, but the speech program is going to be using it pretty heavily too. So I'm excited we got the Premier Edition where the college is paying for it.
But you still only like 7 students can have their webcams enabled even with the premium. Is that true?
Oh, I
read that on the Bongo thing. It didn't seem like much of an upgrade as far as how many students can have webcams enabled at the same time.
I'm going to check into that number. I'm not sure what the number is. That hasn't been my primary focus. But I do believe it's more than that. But I will check.
I used it in the fall. In the spring, and there. As far as I know, there's no limits to it. There obviously are, but I didn't see any limits. My whole class was on, and I had no problem with it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Everyone had their cameras enabled?
Yep.
Well, we got some kind of a sheet that said that only 7 webcams can be enabled at the same time. So
I will say that like this particular session, we're talking about recording videos, and I would not have student videos on, because what happened when I was recording is like students knew they were going to be recorded, and then everyone started turning their cameras off. And so like, here we're talking about making a video by ourselves. And so it's different, you can use Zoom for that and your cameras are on, but, think carefully about how you're recording those. And it'd be nice if you could only show yourself and not show everyone up there, or like in Zoom, it'll show like 5 of them up there. And so just something to keep in mind. Any other questions here before we just have like a couple minutes left? Okay. Tyler, you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so again, thank you very, very much, Chastity and Dan, for putting this together and for sharing your experience, your wisdom with us. As we sort of mentioned at the beginning, so it's a lot of information to soak in, and Chastity and Dan gave the really good advice of sort of start where you're at. Don't feel like you have to completely reinvent everything for your courses in this fall, but experiment with a couple of the resources. And Chastity mentioned really good advice too of working with your colleagues to share frustrations, challenges you have with the technology, with the software, with the recording videos, as well as with what you're trying out. If you're somebody who is not very connected to your colleagues or to ECC yet, you all have my email address in terms of the Zoom link. Absolutely feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to connect you with others or just to sit down and kind of talk through any of these details and further with anybody. So you have the resources. I'll be sending them out by the end of this week, definitely all of that. Take time, soak it in, look over things, try some things out, follow up with your colleagues, follow up with me, and I'll make the recording available as well. So thanks everybody. If you have particular questions you don't want to air with the entire group, I'll be sticking around here about 10 or 15 minutes on the Zoom chat. Feel free to stick around if you want to. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.